Hey guys, it's Car from Enchanted Vines, and this is our first of many tutorials that are going to be offered that have corresponding wreath kits that you can purchase. So if you want to make the same design with me with the same materials, then I got you. So there'll be more to come on that. But what we're going to be doing is, because this is going to be one of the kit tutorials, we're going to do everything in real time. So normally I prep things in advance. I kind of have my wreath cleaned up, all that stuff. But for this purpose, it's going to be a tutorial that someone can use as a step-by-step guide if they're designing at home. So I hope you like it, and I'd love to hear feedback on it, okay? So first thing that we do when we have our grapevine wreath is it always comes with, random pine needles or branches. And so the first thing that we're going to do is clean this up. So I'm going to use my very sophisticated camera work to move you over to the easel. All right, and as you can see, this wreath it's nice as far as it's symmetrical, but we do have some stray branches. So what I want to do is clean this up and have it be nice and polished. Some people appreciate kind of the natural wild growth, and if that's what you prefer, then by all means, you do you, because this is for your home, or if you're gifting it, and you want it to have your spin on it. So you want it to be a design that you love. Okay. So I'm going to go through with wire cutters and just trim. If you had leaves in it, this one doesn't, but if you had leaves inside of it, you always want to clean that out because they are decomposing. And so if you're trying to glue something into leaves that are decomposing, then it's not going to have anything to stick to. Okay. So right now I've cleaned the front, and what I want to do is on the back, I always want to be really mindful of not scratching doors, scratching the paint off. So if you look at this thing would do some damage to a door. So even though it's a really thick piece, I could either use this as the front, but I kind of already had my mind made up. So I am going to snip this. Now this is a thick branch, and you can get away with snipping a thick branch here or there. Like say you had a spot that was really tight and you wanted to loosen it up, you could do it. But in general, you could get away with snipping some off. The materials are made to be manipulated. If you remove too many, then you might actually end up, removing the pieces that are holding it together. But if you need to remove like one or two, definitely go for it. All right, so now I'm going to assess, looking at my wreath, what's its best side. We all know when we have our photos taken, we have our best side, we have our not so best side. So for me, looking at this wreath and assessing it, this part's thin. So this is the part I'm going to want to cover up. We're doing a crescent wreath, which is, like a moon. It's one half is going to be covered. So this is the half that I'm going to cover because this side here is more full and it just looks more symmetrical to me. Okay. So for those who are doing a kit, the first thing I do after my wreath is cleaned is I use one of these natural grapevine wires. So they are made to look exactly like your grapevine, okay? I'm all about the sneaky mechanics, okay? We want it to be a design that is hardy and it's going to be sturdy, but you don't want to necessarily see like how the sausage is made. So we're going to use this wire, and if you're getting a kit, the minor details like this wire will be there included. And we're going to take a thick piece of our grapevine, and we're going to take our wire, and we're going to feed it through. Okay, and then we're going to just twist the ends. Okay, and now as you can see, this gets lost like almost instantly. Like that's how it's designed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of ribbon, and I'm just going to tie it in a knot just to mark it. Now sometimes as we're designing, we might decide that the top part of our wreath has changed. And if that happens, you can just move your hook. But I think in general, it's good to keep in mind, oops, sorry, I flipped it. It's good to keep in mind what your top point is, okay? So the first thing that we're going to be working with today are our ficus leaves, okay? And these are a go-to for me. So each ficus leaf can be cut into 4s, okay? So what I'm going to be doing is we have 3 branches, and I'm going to prep these all. So I'm going to take heavy-duty wire cutters. Makes such a difference, especially if you know, you have any arthritis or your wrist gets sore, it kind of helps do the work for you. So I'm snipping off the 2 side pieces. And then this piece in the middle is longer than what we're gonna need. So instead of wasting it, I'm gonna go at the halfway point and cut it. And then I'm gonna trim this part too. So now I'm gonna go and do that again. So we're gonna cut this into 4 pieces. Each side piece will get snipped. And then this middle piece that's too long, we're gonna cut that into 2s. So some things to note about the kits are that I'll be supplying, you know, mechanics as far as the materials go. However, you would need to have, you know, your wire cutters. I use a glue pan. Some people use glue guns. Either one is fine. I like to dip in the glue as I go. Let me wow you with my my camera skills. So this is my glue pan, okay? So when I'm designing, just so you can kind of see, because it's typically off camera, this uses glue pellets. And what happens is they melt until they're kind of like a syrupy honey texture, okay? So I'm going to glue as I go. Sometimes people are more comfortable putting everything on and then going back and gluing. It's all about what you feel most comfortable with. This isn't going to be a stressful process. It shouldn't be. It should be something that you really enjoy. Even if it doesn't come out perfect the first time around, you definitely want to enjoy doing it, okay? So for me, I'm fine with gluing it. If I really don't like the placement of something, I'll pull it out, okay? So back to the easel. All right. So we are going to be using these ficus to establish the parameters of our crescent style wreath. So I'm very OCD. And so if you see me do something once, there's a good chance you're going to see me do it again. So right now we're putting one up top, one on the bottom. Now we're going to go to our outer edges. And we're going to put one facing this way. Now, please note, everything is very malleable. You are not going to break things easily. And I will be sending some extra ficus leaves in each of the kits, just because I feel like sometimes when something's missing, if you put in more flowers and you kind of bog it down with flowers, it just becomes too concentrated and it doesn't look natural. So I always find like leaves are a nice airy way to do that. All right, so we've got our 2 up top, 2 up bottom. Now we're going to focus on the middle. Lower that a little bit. All right. So here, around every time I give a time, somebody corrects me. I'm going to say it's around 9 o'clock. We're going to put one in, and then we're going to mirror that. And I'm sliding anything on the lower half. I slide it in at an upward angle because it's more likely to catch. And then when I'm putting anything in on the top half, I'm sliding it downward. Same thought process. All right. So now we have a bunch of leftover ficus leaves, and that's okay. They're gonna get used, but we're gonna put these aside for now. We are going to start with these chalk white hydrangeas. Okay, and I love the foliage on this. I find them very natural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push up the foliage on each of these. Not too hard. You don't want to like pop the head off the flower. These are from Pioneer, and I will say they have a great track record of their flowers do not just like pop off. If that should happen with any of your florals, all that you would need to do is just dip the tiniest bit of glue on the end and then just insert the flower back on it. But this is actually one of the things I really like about their supplies, are that they are very high quality and you don't run into a lot of issues like that. All right, so we're going to go through bunch by bunch and start to do a placement of how the colors are going to be dispersed. Okay, so starting with our white hydrangeas. We're going to start one here in the middle. Now, please note, this is off of the wreath by about 3 inches. If someone had a storm door, they need to put theirs directly onto the grapevine, okay? Ideally, you want everything airy and you want it to stick out. However, if you have a storm door and you make a very airy wreath, it's gonna look crushed. And so people who are designing for storm doors just need to like keep that in mind. It's also helpful, you know, if you have a client and you're trying to figure out exactly what they're looking for, that's always a good question to ask. You know, is there any unusual things about the placement? Is it going on glass? Is it going on a mirror? Because if it is, you have to really do some extra things to the back of it to really prevent any scratching. All right, so here we have our placement so far. Okay, it's all dispersed evenly throughout. Now we're gonna go in with these berry cabbage roses. And I love these. If you want your front door to like grab the attention of people driving by or walking by, these are your ideal flowers because they just pop. So I'm clipping all of these. I'm so bad at guessing measurements, but I'm going to say at about 6 inches. Some of this is going to poke through the back of the wreath, but that's okay because we have some cleaning up that we're going to do at the very end of this video. So I'm going to go through and clip everything. And for these cabbage roses on these bushes, they have their own little pattern. So it's 2 big blooms to every small bloom. So what I often like to do with that is to do clusters. Not all the time, but you know, you could cluster a little family of them, or you could cluster just, you know, a big bloom and a little bloom, but you always know what's in that recipe. So going in. Now for this, I like the foliage, but it's kind of interfering. It's not something I feel like I need to keep. So if it's towards the bottom, I'm going to pull it. And then I'm going to start in the same area. I think once you kind of establish what your recipe is, you just notice that you have a pattern that you follow. And that's a good thing because you've got like muscle memory that kicks in and it makes the design process go by a lot quicker. Once you find what works for you, there's really no reason to change except for when you're looking to do something different. But you can do this with different colors, different variety of flowers, different sizes. And then towards the end, I always like something trailing out that's smaller. So I'm going to use one of the smaller buds down here. And this is going slightly past the greenery. I might end up plugging in a little bit more. Again, the greenery is a suggestion. It's not a tried and true rule that you have to follow. So for now, I'm going to put these last 3 aside. Okay. And we're going to move on to a different color. This is the bisque cabbage rose. So I'm going to slide the leaves up and just trim these all at about 6 inches. It's always okay to trim things too long. If you trim something too short, it can be fixed, but it's a lot more work. So I would say if you're a little bit on the fence about how far you want something to go out, leave it on the longer side, and that way you have the option. If you should cut something too short, you can always put it on a floral pick, okay? So now we're going to go in and we're going to follow the same pattern. I'm going in towards the middle. And then I'm going to go in towards the middle, but on the top half. This one I know is just way too long, so I'm just going to trim them a little bit. We're going to cover it up top. We're going to go down below here. And then let's see. We have some of our smaller blooms. So let's do some clusters. So Here and here, I have these 2 large blooms. Let's take one of the baby blooms and let's pair them up. It's a nice little color blocking technique. Adds a little bit of visual interest. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to repeat the same thing. Okay. And then as I'm working, if I see any major gaps, so here we definitely have a large gap. I'm going to plug this in here. All right, and then right now I have 2 of these. I'm going to put them aside. We are going to go in with these beautiful purple ranunculus. I'm going to slide the leaves up before trimming, just so they're not in my way. I'm going to cut them. So I'm not sure, since this is like my first time launching a kit, I'm not sure if things are going to be sent out as a full bush or if it's going to be sent out for the number of stems needed. I feel like it's fun to have it come out as a bush because then you process it yourself, but also if the materials aren't needed, I don't think it makes sense to pay for more than what you want. So I guess there'll be more to come. This is, I'm figuring this all out as I go. Welcome to the world of being a small business owner who does things on camera that they're not sure about. All right. Here we go. So this is starting to fill out. Let me make sure you can really see it. Okay. Looking good. Let's see, I'm just assessing. Do we have enough of the purple everywhere? I feel like we could use another one down here. So for these tutorials, you could obviously, 1, go with the kit, 2, use your own product. The other thing I was thinking would be fun is, okay, I have 3 that aren't getting used. I'm going to put them aside for now, is that if you wanted to host your own workshop in your home, you could totally buy the kits for the right number of people and use the video and just follow along, have some sangria, have a glass of wine, and just kind of unwind and be able to design in the comfort of your own home. I tell you, people do enjoy a private workshop. Now we're going to go in with this pink ranunculus, and I'm going to start with the bigger blooms first. Okay, and you can see, like, I always start at this top corner, and I'm not even thinking about it. It's just, like, again, it's like that muscle memory. It just kicks in. And I think especially because I do in-person workshops where I'm making the same wreath over and over again, it just reinforces how I design things. Okay, so we're just spreading these pink ranunculus through. I love these, and these are so detailed. They even have like the little seeds in the middle, like so pretty. These flowers are all very natural looking. Like someone's husband may try and water this. That natural looking, I would say. And if you're not sure if wreath making is right for you or something that you're gonna enjoy, I would say just try it. I mean, like, I am really bad at painting, but I enjoy the process. So like, I do love going to paint night events, even if I don't hang my paintings, but I do trust that with this recipe, you are going to have a wreath that you're proud to display. So I don't want to make you think you're not going to use this wreath, but I will say, even if you're not confident that it's like something that you're going to like, or if you feel like you're not creative, I would still give it a shot. All right. Now we're coming in with a part that I love, which is texture. And I think texture is what helps you stand out from, you know, your like store-bought wreath that doesn't have like a soul. I mean, I love me like a Home Sense, or Home Goods, but their wreaths are just so manufactured. So this is the part where you really get to put like that natural spin on things and make your wreath really stand out as something special. So we're going to be going with these bushes, these filler bushes. Now, if you saw my unboxing, I don't love this part of the foliage. It looks very, very plasticky to me, and I feel like there's no need to introduce something that looks that artificial on a wreath that looks very natural. It's better to just throw these out. Or if you wanted to repurpose it to maybe use it on the back of a wreath to cover up a stem or something like that, but I would not recommend it. It's okay to manipulate products and to accept them for their strengths, and if they have some need areas, it's okay to just let that go. Okay. I always say wreath making is not like a dainty process. Like, these are really sturdy materials. You want to get the most out of them. I pretty much manhandle any of it. It's not going to break on you. Okay. Worst thing that could possibly happen, I would say, is you cut something too short. You put it on a pick and give it that length back. Or maybe you pop a head off of something and you just add a little touch of glue. So do not fear when you're making a wreath. I also think that if you are feeling like, I'm not creative, or I'm going to screw this up or whatever, you're not going to enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, then what are you doing it for? So I really believe in just letting go and like following the process, following the recipe. And I do believe you're going to be really impressed with how like creative you are. All right, so let's trim these down. And if you've gotten this far into the video and you're finding it helpful, I would love to know what parts you find helpful, or if there are parts that I'm really not touching on that you'd like to learn about. There's different designs or flowers, things like that. Okay, so these are all prepped now. Okay, again, this is the part I find fun. So we're going in for texture. Now, we could play it safe with texture and just do it, like here, whatever. I love texture to disrupt. So I don't want flowers that are just like politely standing side by side. If you looked at a garden in nature, all things are growing up through it. There's weeds growing through it. There's different plants invading other plants. And I think that's what makes this look natural. So again, you don't want it too crammed, but when you're working with things like filler flowers, it's actually going to break it up. So I'm going to go in with the purple first. I will say I do always love something that's trailing off. So in almost all my designs, you're going to see there's some like lingering piece, whether it's berries or small florals or greenery, that just kind of like has it cascading out and like narrowing down. How gorgeous are these purple things? I still have to look it up. I still think it's like heather or a stilby. It just says berry bush, but this is really packed with color. I think just by default, I look at people's doors, and I saw somebody the other day with this huge, beautiful Christmas wreath on their door, and I like wanted to stop and gift them a wreath because I just can't. It's time. Spring is here. That wreath has to go, be put away until next season. But I don't know. I was on my way to a floral nursery. I was all feeling spring, and then I just saw this huge Christmas wreath, and it just threw me for a loop. All right, so as my wreath gets bigger, I realize that your view is getting a little smaller. Okay. And I'll show you at the end as well. But so here we go. So this is really filled out. And what's nice is when I was working on it, I was working closely at it and I didn't catch that right here, there's a bare spot. So it's really important when we're designing to take a step back and look, because now that I'm doing that, I'm saying, oh wow, like there's a missing bisque rose here. Okay. So like I just start to figure out, okay, there, like there's something missing here. So always take a step back and reevaluate. And sometimes even it helps to take a photo of it on your phone. Like if I'm doing a full cabbage wreath, I find the bottoms of them to be challenging at times, and I can't quite put my finger on what is wrong, but I know that there's something off. And so what I'll do is I'll take a photo of it, and sometimes just having that little bit of separation with your perspective shows you what you need to do. All right, so that's, okay, that's great. Now we're gonna go in with our pink filler. We want to spread this around. And I love how vibrant these colors are. Match some here on the ends, that little bit of trailing off. Yep, and again, I want to make sure now that I've realized that I was neglecting this bottom corner, I just want to make sure that that stays on my radar. So the wreaths that I make in these videos, they do get put up in my shop, so they're available if you just want to purchase it. The kits are going to be in the shop. Once I'm done this, I'm like flying by the seat of my pants today, so I will be pricing it, and then I'll put up some type of listing on my site. And these can only be shipped in the US, and we can't do any exceptions right now on the kits. I don't think that's going to change. I think that's going to get really confusing. So I'd like to just keep this like as a simple service that I provide. So we won't be doing any exceptions. However, if there is a type of flower or color combo that you're looking for a future kit, you can definitely let me know and I can see if I can design around that. All right. And because this is like the first time I'm doing this and I want someone to test it out, I'm going to be launching a giveaway. So I don't know when you're watching this video, if you're watching it like when I made it, or if you're watching it a year from now, this won't apply. But for anybody who's watching it more like in the moment, I am going to be gifting a kit, and I would love to see whether the person's a wreath maker or they just love to win giveaways. I'd love to see how somebody does with following the video and using the kit. All right. Let's see. I was gonna do green berries, but now I'm thinking, pardon me, we also have these cranberries. Ooh, decisions. We're gonna go with the cream. All right, so for these just pull apart, okay? They're assembled with, there's some paper on the stem. However, the actual material is not paper, because anything paper is not going to do well outside. So this is literally the stem. There's wire in it, and it's not going to fall apart. If you happen to watch my unboxing of supplies, I discussed that it's hard to find really good quality berries because a lot of them are, just foam or paper. And so once they get hit with some rain or a lot of sun, all of that stuff is just going to deteriorate. So with these, they are still foam filled. However, they have a nice thick coating on them that protects them. Okay, and then with all of our designs, I UV protect them before they ship out. So that's like an extra step. Whereas if you sprayed UV spray on something that's really foamy, the spray alone might actually start to like eat it up a little bit. But these are tried and true berries from Pioneer. All right, so I always love to give berries a prominent placement because I just find their texture to be very interesting. So we're gonna have these on the ends, like making a mess on my floor. Okay. Again, we're doing that mirroring. When we mirror things, we're maintaining balance. I'm going to go in the top corner, in there. Kind of repeat that and go to this bottom corner, sliding it up at an upward angle. Okay. Got 2 left. Let's make them count. So let's put them more towards the inside of our wreath. And one right here. Have it inward. All right, so now I'm going to take a good step back, and I can see that there are some greens that are missing from the top. So this is why we're going to be using the 3 stems that I had talked about in the beginning. However, in the kits, we're going to be sending additional ones because this is the easiest way to resolve balance issues. If you put, too many flowers in trying to create that balance, sometimes what happens is it's all very bogged down and it doesn't have that natural appearance. So keeping your leaves light and airy, like these are close to touching, but they're not like solidly placed along each other. If you do that, you kind of lose that feeling. So that airy natural feeling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of these up top. I'm going to give this a little bend because I want it to curve along with the wreath a little bit. And then I am going to repeat that at the very bottom. Like so. And then any of these extra leaves, these are the ones that they didn't have the points. They're part of the middle parts. This one has a point, but I call these nubbins because I'm very mature. But you can take these nubbins and you can just use them again to break up your flowers. You want this to look like it is growing in the most beautiful garden. And gardens, part of what makes them beautiful, it makes nature beautiful, is it's not perfect. Perfect looks manufactured. We want something that has a little bit of like a wild feel that represents what we might see out in nature. I just got back this week from a trip in Copenhagen, and holy cow, it's like the flowers there just absolutely blew my mind. Like my whole camera roll is just pretty much flowers. There's like one of my husband and 100 of flowers. So, but it was a great experience, and it was great to see lots of different colors and textures. Okay, so for the purpose of the kits, I have only this left over. So I'm going to say I am going to just send the full bushes because this isn't a lot. If it was a lot, I wouldn't want people to have to pay for extra flowers, but somebody might want to make this go a little further. Actually, right here is missing. This is missing purple. So I think you might find a spot for everything. If you have extra flowers, don't use them if you don't feel like you need them. You could just drop them in a vase, and that way they're being, utilized. They're not going to waste, but you're also not sacrificing the look of your wreath just to use up all the materials. So you can kind of feel it out as you go. Let's see. I promise I'm not doing that. I know I just said don't do it, but there are a few holes. Dun, dun. Let's see here. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take my own advice and stop. So here is the wreath that we're going to be making the kits for. Sorry. And actually, I'm stuttering because I forgot to clean the back. So. That's what happens when you're like trying to think of something while you're recording and you're like, oh, yeah, forgot something. So on the back of this wreath, you can see all of these stems sticking out. These stems will kill your door. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our clippers and we're going to go through and we're going to trim all of these stems. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of extra glue on it, because obviously if I'm cutting something that had the glue on it, then like this is a great example, okay? Like all the glue is on this piece. So once I cut this off, that means that I've cut off the glue adhering it. So we're gonna have to go back and just double our efforts a little bit to make sure that this is a nice secure product. I also should mention these are 18-inch grapevine wreaths. These are my go-to. And let's see, I'm trying to think of what other questions, but. So when we're doing this, it's dual purpose. One is we're not scratching doors. Two is we're making sure that everything is really secured onto our wreath. For my home, if there is, you know, a storm of any sort, like in the winter, if there's a snowstorm, other seasons if there's a thunderstorm, I don't bring my wreaths in and they're not covered. So my house gets full sun and it's on an uncovered front door. So when I'm designing, that's who I'm designing for. I'm not looking to, if somebody wants to use a wreath inside, that's obviously great, but they can also have the option of knowing that this wreath is built sturdy enough to survive outdoor elements. Okay, so for this part, we're going to be using our glue gun. I use a Sure Bonder glue gun with Gorilla Glue sticks. And wireless is the way to go, or cordless. These work amazing. Very, very hot. Always have to be careful. So what I like to do is, as I'm gluing these little stem ends, I'm gonna kind of like, I'm letting it dry just slightly because it is so hot. And then I'm going to lightly just add some of this dry moss. Again, will be in your kit. I'm just going to put it over these stems. This way it hides kind of like the ugly ends of the stems and serves a purpose. So it's disguising the mechanics. Don't need to know how the sausage was made. And keeping our door safe, especially if you're gifting a wreath to maybe like a new homeowner. I mean, I had someone recently tell me that she wanted her wreath to damage her door so that she could repaint it, which I thought was pretty funny. But for most, we don't want to hurt the paint on our door. So we take the time to do this process. Okay. My dog Steve is down here. He's yawning. Apparently, he's not into my video, which is fine. Okay. Then you can flip your wreath over, and for the next few steps, I blow dry all of the glue strings off of my wreath. You can also just pull them with your hands, and I do that on the front and the back. And then the last part, and this won't be in your kit, but I really encourage everyone to invest in this, is the Krylon UV treatment. I get this at Michael's. You can use one of those 20 or 40% off coupons. And what you do is you take this outside because it has fumes just like any spray paint. And you go and you spray your wreath for a good like 20, 30 seconds. I always hit the greenery extra because the greenery is the first to go. Like if you've seen some of the really, you know, cheap faux florals and you see that blue greenery, it just ruins it. So always put a little extra on that. And for people who just want to know how to take care of your wreath, I always apply it at the beginning of every season. And then at the end of the season, I blow dry it in case there's any